Morning, everyone. This is Supervisor Desmond, your chair of the Transportation Committee meeting. Wanted to welcome you to the April 17th Sandag Transportation meeting. Do we have a quorum by staff?
Yes, Chair. This is the clerk. We have a quorum.
All right, great. Well, welcome everybody. Glad you're here. If we could all start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Up in the morning and out to school.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not sure where the 50s music came from, but anyway, it must be somebody's phone. Anyway, okay, before we jump into the meeting, I wanted to ask our clerk, we already got the quorum, but because this is a new process for the Transportation Committee, I'd like to ask Amberlynn Griffin, our legal counsel, to go over the basic instructions. So for both the committee members and the members of the public who want to participate today. So Amberlynn, if you could take it away.
Thank you, Chair. First, for our committee members, if you have a question or a comment or would like to make or second a motion, please click on the raise hand icon at the top right of the screen. When the chair sees that, he will call on you. Everyone's microphone will be muted by default. This is very important. Please do not touch the microphone icon. The chair will be able to see a list of all committee members who have raised their hands and will call on you at the appropriate time, and you will be unmuted. Your microphone icon at the top right of your screen will turn from red to green. Again, please do not click on the microphone icon yourself. If you mute yourself, we cannot unmute you. After your motion or comments, you will be muted again, and the chair will proceed to the next committee member in line. For each item on the agenda, the chair will call on staff to present each item. You will see their PowerPoint slides or an item action slide on your screen. After each presentation, we will follow our normal process. First, we will take public comment, which will be described in a moment. Committee members can then ask questions or offer comments on the item by raising their hands. The chair will call on members who have raised their hands and unmute each individually. If you would like to make a motion or to second a motion, please raise your hand. The chair will recognize you in the same manner as for questions or comments, and your microphone will be unmuted to make or second a motion. As for voting, by state law, all votes in a teleconference meeting must be by a roll call vote. After there has been a motion and a second, the clerk will call for the vote of each committee member individually, and that member will be unmuted to vote. At the conclusion of voting, the clerk will announce the result. Also, for clarity of the record, please identify yourself each time you speak. As we go through this process, we'll likely be going a little bit slower than normal. For members of the public, we have asked that comments be emailed to the clerk of the board in advance of the meeting. Those that were sent by 4 p.m. yesterday have been provided to all TC members in advance of today's meeting. The public can also email comments during the meeting. Those should be sent to clerk, C-L-E-R-K, @sandag.org, identifying the item number to which the comments pertain and the name of the commenter. After the conclusion of each presentation, we will take any needed time to compile comments that were received on that item. The clerk will then read all comments that were submitted during the meeting. Mindful of the number of items today and the need to keep a quorum, the chair has set a limit of 1 minute per comment. If the comment takes more than this time to read, only the first 1 minute will be read, but the entirety of the comment will be made part of the meeting records. That concludes my instructions, and staff will remain available to assist with any technical issues.
All right, thank you, Amberlynn. We're going to move into our item number one. This is the approval of the meeting minutes. Tessa, do we have any comments on the minutes?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have an email from Nicole Burgess regarding the minutes for March 6, 2020 for the Transportation Committee meeting item number 5, the military multimodal access strategy. She would like the minutes changed to reflect that she does not support this item and spoke in opposition to the strategy and the end results.
Okay. Does anybody have a motion with potentially that amendment to it? I see a hand up, Gary Benelli. Mr. Benelli.
Mr. Benelli, you're self-muted.
Gary, you got to unmute yourself.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Sankey, I see your hand up.
Yes, I'll second the motion, and as long as the maker of the motion will allow a friendly amendment that it reflects the changes reflected by Ms. Burgess.
All right, Gary, we're back to you.
Mr. Benelli, you're muted again.
Yes, I accept the amendment, and the computer's doing it to me, not me.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the meeting minutes with the Mrs. Burgess's amendment in there. I guess we could have a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor Paul McNamara,
McNamara, aye.
Vice Chair Bill Sankey,
Yankee is a yes.
I see Councilmember Monica Montgomery, Councilmember, you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. If you would like to email me or text me your vote on this item, I can enter it into the record that way.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, I just joined I just was able to join the meeting. I was having issues, so I don't actually know what we're voting on, so I apologize for that.
We're voting on the minutes as amended with a change to Nicole Burgess' statement for item 5, that she does not support the item and spoke in opposition to the strategy and the end results. Would you like me to come back?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Chair Jim Desmond,
Aye.
Mayor Jewel Edson. Oh, sorry.
Edson, aye.
Sorry, I missed Councilmember Bill Baber.
Baber, aye.
Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, aye.
Joanna Shivani.
Joanna Simone, yes.
And Commissioner Gary Benelli. Sorry, I'm trying to find you. Oh. You are self-muted, Gary.
For our board members, if you would allow me to mute and unmute you so that we don't get the background noise, please.
Commissioner, you're unmuted.
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. That concludes the vote. The item number 1 minutes as amended. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to call back on Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
I vote yes.
Thank you. That concludes the vote. Item number 1, the minutes, passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much, Tessa. Whew, that was, okay, we'll see how these next items go. Item number 2, this is the public comments and communications and member comments. Tessa, do we have any public comments that need to be read into the record? Any communications received by the public?
There are no public comments.
All right, how about any members of the committee? Do you have any comments? If you do, please raise your hand and we'll make sure you get in there. I don't see anybody. Okay, all right, well, there's no comments on this. We got no public comments or committee comments. We'll move on to item 3. This is our executive director's report, Hassan Akrada. So Hassan.
Thank you, Chair Desmond, and good morning to all of you. Glad to talk to you through the internet. Hope you're safe and healthy with your families. As some of you may have heard already, 90% of the SANDAG team has been teleworking for a month now. I have been very impressed by the amazing SANDAG staff who have adapted to our remote work scenario. The team has banded together to continue to make progress in important projects and programs for the San Diego region. All deadlines been met. The plan is still on schedule to be completed November of 2021. Our construction projects are moving forward. As a matter of fact, the Mid-Coast project is moving ahead of schedule. There's not much traffic on the roadway, so closures are much easier to do. Earlier this month, our iCommute team hosted 2 telework-related webinars, well attended to guide employer and employees in the region on telecommuting, telework-related issues. Next month, we'll host another 2 additional webinars on the same subject. We continue to work with the media and spread the word in how can we help. While our offices remain closed to the public, a few essential employees at the Toll Operations Center are continuing to take customer phone calls and ensure safety and maintenance of the roadway, while following social distancing guidelines and public health orders. We continue to monitor and follow federal, state, and county guidelines in our effort to stem the spread of the virus and flatten the curve. As some of you heard in the board last week, our chief economist, who is one of the best in the country, Ray Major, has developed with his team an economic forecast for the region based on key indicators in many different tax markets. According to the report, if conditions continue as is, we expect to see a 13% drop in tax revenues, and we are adjusting our budget that's going to go to the board May 8th to reflect that change. Through the effort of communications department, we have shared the forecast information with the media and other stakeholders, and the reaction has been positive. As a matter of fact, the self-help county in the state of California is using Ray's model to forecast their own sales taxes throughout the state. There was a front page story in the Union Tribune earlier this week, and Ray has been interviewed by multiple television and radio outlets. Our government relations departments has also shared the forecast with our legislators and transportation agencies, and we continue to get feedback and requests to present virtually, of course, to groups. SANDAG continues to be a regional leader in forecasting, and Ray will update the forecast regularly to inform you on our municipal and county partners. Next week, Ray will be looking at the economic sector hardest hit by unemployment. Give you a little legislative update. We continue to monitor the legislative and policy development in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. California legislators announced their recess has been extended until May 4th, and that could slip again too. Governor Newsom has made it clear that the state budget he proposed in January is no longer operable, and we await the May revision. The governor announced earlier this week the 6 steps for opening the economy, and I believe it will be a long time that the economy and the community open fully. State committee chairs have advised that only bills directly related to the COVID-19 response will be heard at this time. Therefore, we are looking for other ways to fund the Delmar Bluff long-term study. As part of the stimulus funds from Washington, we received over $310 million for our transit agencies. MTS will receive 70% of the funds and NCTD will receive 30% of the funds. This will help our partners survive the dramatic dip in ridership that both are experiencing. The MTS board yesterday officially postponed their tax measure, and I would add MTS board member Bill Sankey if he would like to say anything about this. Bill? Mr. Sankey?
Thank you very much. And Hassan, yes, you touched on that. I think Supervisor Fletcher was very eloquent in his remarks, and if you want to read them, they were quoted in the UT this morning. It was a reluctant decision on the part of leadership at MTS, but it certainly recognizes the fiscal realities. I think it's important you touched on the monies that are coming in from the federal government. We adopted some preliminary budget stuff as well yesterday, and it included $33 million in monies that we're going to be using directly to the next set of operations and capital side too. And we have embarked on $100 million worth of capital improvements for next year using monies that are already programmed. So, you know, MTS, while we were sitting a little quiet on the vote side of things, we're certainly moving ahead on infrastructure, and there was a robust discussion on spending money towards purchases of electric buses as well. And the speed at which we're going to be adopting that. So, and we expect to hear more about that from our leadership at MTS in the June or July meetings. So pay attention to that as that comes forward. But Hassan, thank you very much for recognizing that. And I'm sure this is going to reflect, you know, sort of a big pause and as you suggested, more than just a year. And so anyway, we remain committed to the region, and MTS is happy to partner with Sandag. And you touched on Ray Major as well. And while I have the floor, I want to say what a great job Ray and your staff are doing. It's certainly not going unnoticed, not just by those of us in the seats, but by others around San Diego. So again, Hassan, thank you for your team and all your efforts during this difficult time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilman Sankey. A little bit about the stimulus project list. I reported to the board last week that in anticipation of federal stimulus discussion and to ensure we are ready for a future infrastructure stimulus bill, Sandag has developed and is working through a list of projects that could be shovel ready in the next 18 months. Some of the potential projects that could be included are the I-5 HOV lane in Carlsbad, the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, Delmar Bluff stabilization, several regional projects that are environmentally clear and designed. These are projects that the board prioritized previously and approved funding for environmental or design phases. Sandag intends to submit this list to the federal government shortly in order to secure funds for construction. Advancing these projects is also an effort to stimulate jobs in the region. I encourage you in your respective city or county to, if you have shovel-ready projects that are transportation relating, that are significant, to work with our staff so we could put a strong regional list together. Another project list has been developed for a project that would be shovel-ready in 18 to 36 months. We will be sharing with the Transportation Committee the list as they get prepared. We encourage you strongly to submit the shovel-ready project to Susan Huntington in our Transnet department. Update you on the priority project update, the regional plan. We look forward to presenting the vision to the Transportation committee, and as agreed by Supervisor Desmond and Chair Voss, we will do it hopefully when we can get back together live. In the meantime, work is progressing and we do not anticipate changes to the schedule for the plan to adopt in the fall of 2021. As we are looking to increase telework assumption for the regional plan, staff are surveying employers around the region to get a sense of how their workforce might adapt to teleworking long term. I have done several interviews with newspapers and TV with my team, yesterday with Ray Trainer, spending an hour with the Union Tribune reporters. A lot being talked about whether this pandemic is going to make more of us telecommute in the future. That's our hope. And we're going to go more than hope. I will be asking the board of directors at one point to increase resources for the iCommute to be available to employers who are interested in long-term telecommuting. We do need this for us to meet the state and federal requirement. Our hope is many employees who telecommute because of the pandemic will at least continue to telecommute some of the time. You also have seen an article in Union Tribune about the Central Mobility Hub Navy Old Town Complex. We are continuing to work with our partners from the Navy. We are continuing the environmental process. Our bill in Sacramento that will be authored by Assembly Member Gloria and principally co-authored by Senator Pro Tem Atkin is still geared to be heard this session. The bill is about CEQA streamlining. The Navy completed the scoping portion of its environmental review and released the findings earlier this week and is preparing to embark on the NEPA process. The Navy believes they must move quickly on this project due to the absolute need to have its cybersecurity force housed in appropriate building. The pandemic solidified their belief that this project must move as quickly as possible. This effort comes despite the recent resignation of Navy Secretary Thomas Modly. Army Under Secretary James McPherson has been appointed to the acting position. We are working with our Navy team right now. We completed the economic analysis that will be presented to our board and to the Transportation Committee and Regional Planning Committee very shortly. The analysis looks at the cost of providing the Navy needs and also the economic analysis of potential value that could be captured from the development of the land. We will continue to press ahead, and we are glad to partner with the United States Navy on this to eventually build a transportation hub that link the airport to transit. You also may have heard that the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority has seen a big dip in revenues due to the pandemic and may consider postponing the planned work on Terminal 1. I would ask board member Joanna Ishvini if she would like to say anything about this.
Yes, thank you. We received an extensive update about the status of our capital projects yesterday during our special board meeting, and planning is going to continue with respect to the Terminal 1 ADP. We're still in planning phase, and so that planning is going to continue, and we haven't made a decision yet whether or not that timeline is going to change. But the sort of big takeaway point is, at this point, we're continuing to plan because we've made a determination, or staff has made the determination, that it would be more expensive to stop and then restart later because we're not in a high cost phase of the planning at the moment. So we continue with certain capital projects. Others have been postponed, but that project is still being planned.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. So finally, Chair Desmond and committee members, I know this is not easy on all of us, and I'm almost sure we're going to get out of it and I hope soon. I just want in your behalf to thank the San Diego team who's adjusted in over a weekend to go to telecommute. Want to thank our IT team, James in particular. You know, 3 weeks ago we had 10 laptops. Today we have 300, and all staff are equipped with the computers and softwares and hardwares. Productivity is up, and I am really proud of the team. The senior leadership team, Ray Trainer, Laura, and James are working 24/7. We'll continue to communicate with our staff because it's hard on them. We have surveyed them and we heard from them, but the spirits are high, and we will continue to work on behalf of the region. Chair Desmond, that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Hassan, thank you very much. And I know you had called on MTS to make a comment. I know North County Transit District, I don't know, Jack Feller, did you have anything you wanted to say about the funds that North County Transit District is going to be receiving as well as MTS?
Yes, the district is appreciative of the 94 million, I believe it is, that we're going to receive. I know I trust our board and Matt and his staff to really actually make a difference with our employees and be ready to go when this disaster's over. So God bless that staff for sure.
All right, well, thank you. And also too, I wanted to, just kind of echo the comments. I have seen Ray Major's works and efforts, and even at the county, we're using that data that he put out there. So we appreciate that. And also the fact that I guess you're continuing with the 2021 plan, and you and your staff, Hassan. I just, am interested to, and you don't have to answer this, but just more of a comment. The world's not going to be as we knew it 2 months ago. And so with a lot more telecommuting and a lot more, efforts of people, staying and working at home. And I understand the partnership that we have with the Navy for the Grand Central Station there. I'm just curious, what effect this is going to have on transit ridership and the necessity of, how big of a Grand Central Station do we really need, knowing the fact that people are we're all very technologically savvy right now, and I think that's going to have a big effect on our world in the future.
Yeah,
so,
Supervisor, if I may, I totally. First of all, I think transit in the country took a big hit, and we're probably going to continue for the year. Having said that, and I will just repeat to you and the committee member what I told the reporter who interviewed me on this. It will be really hard to, first of all, it's too early to tell. If this pandemic continue for a long time, the impact will be more felt. If it's over, in a month or two, the impact will be different. So it's early to tell. One, it's hard to tell about whether the telecommuting is going to pick up in a significant way after this, and we hope it does, and we're going to do our best to make sure it does. Having said that, everything we do, like our plan goes to 2050. It will be really premature and a mistake to judge a 40-year plan or 30-year plan with this pandemic yet. A question when I was told, will people ever take transit again? Well, if you want to apply that logic, that means we were never going to go to baseball games or basketball games or concerts or restaurants. So it's hard to tell, too early to tell. But we're going to learn a lot out of this, and we're still in the development of the plan. And if adjustment need to be made, we'll make it. But I can tell you right now, looking at 3-decade plan and to change it based on an incident 1 year will be really hard at this point. But we'll see. I mean, we're gonna adjust as needed, and our hope and we're gonna ask you to allow us to put more resources into this. That more will telecommute, because that's a sure way for us to meet our requirement and add to the transportation system capacity.
Well, and I would, even after we get out of this, I might consider we have every other transportation committee meeting be a telecommute meeting. We should, you know, put our money where our mouth is and set the example instead of, you know, life is not going to be normal again. Okay, we got to get this back to the transportation committee agenda here. We're moving on to item 4A. This is the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee. Their initial findings.
Chair Desmond,
Yes.
this is Tessa. I'd just like to state for the record that there were no public comments on item 3.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to ask. I forgot to ask. Okay, thank you.
This is James from Sandag. Paul Jablonski would like to say something.
Oh, okay. I didn't see your hand up, Paul, but okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment based on the last discussion. You know, when it comes to the CARES money, our board passed our budgets, both revised 2020 and going ahead in FY21. And we're predicting, as best we can predict right now, using about 30 million for the balance of this fiscal year, and then over 100 million for the balance of the next fiscal year. So that's a comfortable margin for us. I think it's going to go beyond a year, but we're comfortable right now, and I think we'll just have to wait and see in terms of sales tax revenues and STA and other funds like that, as well as ridership. You know, trolley is down about 60% in ridership, so we've got fairly healthy ridership still going on the trolley. The bus is down about 70%. But we still have, you know, 90 to 100,000 people every day still using us. And I think, you know, just to herald what Hassan said or echo, you know, I think we just have to wait and see. I think it depends on if we get a treatment for this, if we get a vaccine for this, and how quickly we return. But it's obvious that a lot of people need to use us every day. I think it's going to take us a while to rebuild, but I think we will rebuild. And also on a national level, I'm involved in the group at our national association where we're already starting to brainstorm about, you know, life after this. So we've got people thinking about it. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I didn't mean to, you know, imply that transit is going away. I just, you know, we're in a whole different realm now, and I think normal is going to be different in the future. So I don't disagree. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to try to move to item 4A again. This is the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, the initial findings and recommendations. I just might, before we start this one, I noticed we've got a new actionable item. It's just discussion. And I noticed this happened at a board meeting the other day where it was just discussion. I know what information is. I know what action is, or an approve or disapprove, but discussion seems to leave out any input. What's this new category, and what's staff idea of this action of just discussion?
Chair, if I may, this is Legal Counsel Amberlynn Griffin.
Yes, Amberlynn, thanks.
The item that you're about to hear, item 4A, relates to a very particular audit that is performed by ITOC, and it is governed by the Transnet ordinance itself, which clearly defines the role of the Transportation Committee with regard to this audit. And the Transnet ordinance states that the ITOC will present its draft audit to the Transportation Committee to resolve any inconsistencies or technical issues that are related to this audit. But once this review has taken place, that the ITOC is responsible for making any amendments that it deems appropriate and to adopt its own report for presentation directly to the Board of Directors. So this item is a little bit different than audits that you typically see today. The TC's role is really to bring to the ITOC's attention any inconsistencies or technical issues. And that's why this matter has been noticed this way.
Okay, but I guess I would like to see future items as discussion and possible action, or possible direction. So I think, because otherwise, why are we doing this? So I would like to see all Transportation Committee items to be discussion, possible action items, if I could. Thank you. Do we have a presentation on this for Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee?
Yeah, this is Kai Raymer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm Kai Raymer. I'm the current chair of the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, and I'm here to introduce this item. So good morning, Chair Desmond and members of the Transportation Committee. The Transnet fiscal and compliance audits have been conducted for the fiscal year 2019, or the period July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. These audits are performed annually to assist the ITOC in providing oversight for the expenditure of funds under the Transnet Extension Ordinance. We had a meeting earlier this week of the ITOC on Wednesday morning, and we reviewed and accepted the auditor's summary of results for the fiscal year 2019 draft audit reports, including their findings and recommendations. The audits went very well. All the Transnet recipient agencies, including the cities, the county, transit agencies, are all largely in compliance, and our committee commends these agencies on these efforts for being in compliance. And now, before we finalize the audit report, it's required that we share, as mentioned just a minute ago, that we share our initial audit recommendations with the Transportation Committee. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Farr of Davis Farr, which is the firm that conducted the fiscal year 2019 audit on behalf of the ITOC. Jennifer will share an overview of the initial findings and recommendations of the audit, and she will also address comments provided by the ITOC at our meeting earlier this week. And then at the end of her presentation, Jennifer will turn it over to Sandag staff led by Samuel Deach, who will cover the next steps in the process for you. And then I will remain on and be available to answer any questions you have if directed to our committee. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Great, thank you, and good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. I wanted to go over the scope of our procedures and the results of the findings, and I'll try to be brief for you. So we met with the ITOC in July of 2019 to discuss the procedures to be performed for this fiscal year's audit, and that's the year ended June 30, 2019. And from September through December of 2019, we performed agreed upon procedures of 24 agencies, including the 18 cities, the County of San Diego, MTS, NCTD, Sandag, Caltrans, and ITOC. And as mentioned, we presented the draft reports at this Wednesday's meeting to ITOC. There are 7 major areas of review that I'll briefly go over. In the first area is expenditure testing. We noted no instances of non-compliance with that testing. The second area is testing of maintenance of effort, and all agencies were in compliance with the maintenance of effort requirements. The third area is the 30% Sandag board policy rule. We determined whether agencies maintained a balance of no more than 30% of their annual apportionments. We found that all agencies were in compliance except for the cities of Imperial Beach and Poway, and funding for those 2 cities will be deferred until the cities are in compliance with that requirement. The fourth area is testing for local street improvements. We are calculating and ensuring that at least 70% of the revenues provided for local street and road purposes were used for congestion relief, and no more than 30% were used for maintenance projects. And we found no exceptions as a result of those procedures. The fifth area is testing over the Regional Transportation Congestion Improvement Program. We tested the exaction collected on new development. We found 3 exceptions where the agencies did not collect the correct amount of the exaction fees, and those are for the cities of Coronado, the city of Lemon Grove, and the city of National City. We also tested expenditures of those exaction fees and had no exceptions as a result of that testing. The 6th area is testing of transit operator eligibility. We tested the increase in the total operating cost for bus and rail services to determine if it exceeded the increase in CPI. The increase in CPI for the year was 2.43%. And we found that North County Transit District was not in compliance with the rail operator eligibility because their operating cost per revenue vehicle mile increased by 12.98%. And that item will be discussed in the next agenda item. And the last area is testing of indirect cost allocated to projects. There were 12 agencies who allocated indirect cost, and as a result of our testing, we noted no exceptions. All of the results of our procedures and the detailed findings are included in each agency's individual draft report. And if there was a finding, management's responses are also included in those reports. So with that summary, I will now turn it back over to Sandag staff to talk about the next stages.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, Mr. Chair and the members of the committee. We have some additional steps to close out the audit process. The first is the next item, which is 4B in the agenda, which we are asking for your consideration to recommend for board approval on May 8th. The ordinance also calls for a 60-day period between today's review of this item and the issuance of the audit. This 60 days period is to provide the auditors time for any final changes to the reports. The ITAC is then scheduled to consider the final drafts for acceptance at their June meeting. Results of this audit are then incorporated into the 2020 ITAC annual report, which will be presented to the board at the June 26 meeting. And this concludes our report for this item, and we are available for questions.
Okay, I'm looking for any raised hands if anybody has any questions on this item. So technically, this is 4A, and is there a presentation or anything on 4B for the remedy, I guess, for NCTD? I'm just asking staff, is there a different presentation, or this is it for both of them?
Yes, there's going to be another presentation for 4B.
Okay, so since 4A is just discussion, is there any discussion, since we can't take any action or give any direction? I'd see no raised hands. So if you want to go ahead then with 4B, which is the actionable part of this item, and is Sam, you going to give the presentation on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So as you have heard in the last report, one of the auditor's procedures is to check compliance of various ordinance requirements of the transit operators and local jurisdictions so that they may continue receiving their annual transit allocations. For the FY19 audit, NCTD report has an unmet requirement needing additional steps secured. On an annual basis, the ordinance requires the transit operators to hold costs for both bus and rail services to CPI, which is used as a measure to help keep costs reasonable year over year. The CPI used for this is the San Diego County. This is transportation specific. And for fiscal year 2019, it was 2.43%, and NCTD exceeded that increase for its rail operations. And so the ordinance then takes into consideration years in which this occurs and provides few options for board consideration. The first one, transit operators may exclude certain unforeseen costs. The second one may use an average over a 3-year period. Or the third one, they may use a combination of the two methods. And NCTD is asking to exclude certain costs from a non-cash adjustment that resulted from an actuarial estimates for NCTD's CalPERS pension liability, other post-employment benefits healthcare plan, third-party claims liabilities, and worker compensation reserves liability. These types of exclusions have been requested in the past and approved by the board. And we have a recommendation for this item. The Transportation Committee is asked to first consider the transit funding eligibility request of the North County Transit District, and second, make a recommendation to the Board of Directors acting as the San Diego County Regional Transportation Commission regarding this request. And this concludes our report, and we are available for any questions. Un from NCTD is also here to answer questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Sam. Is there anyone from NCTD with any comments or additional comments to this? I see Mr. McNamara, your hand was up and you took it down. Mayor Edson, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm or ask a question of Yoon. So the largest adjustment, the change for NCTD came from recalculating non-cash adjustments of 2.1 million that resulted from actuarial estimates for NCT's CalPERS and OPEB and workers' compensation reserves liability is my understanding, and that the largest adjustment of 1.8 million is related to the pension liability, which is calculated by CalPERS based on actuarial assumptions adopted by the CalPERS Board of Administration. And that if it's my understanding that if NCTD had maintained the same allocation methodology in FY19 as in FY18, that after deducting the costs beyond NCTD's control, NCTD is in compliance with the Transnet extension and ordinance for the year ended June 30th, 2019. Is that correct?
Good morning. My name is Yoon Park Lynch. I am the CFO for the North County Transit District. Thank you for hosting this meeting, the members of the Transportation Committee. So there are two components in our calculation. The first one is related to the reallocation of costs between our bus and rail operations. We did a revaluation on fiscal year 2019 on how those costs are allocated. And we are following a methodology that better reflects on how our different modes of transportation are using different resources. The biggest ones that we are referring in our letter are related to the sheriff's contract and the law enforcement contracts that we have with the Oceanside Police Department and the Escondido Police Department, and also salaries and wages for staff. Total expenses have not changed. It's basically a change in how those costs are allocated between our different modes of transportation. Historically, they have been allocated for the most part, based on ridership and based on revenue hours. But we know that, as a matter of fact, we run more hours on our bus service than we do on our rail service. However, to give a quick example, for the contract for our sheriff's department, for the most part, they serve the San Diego subdivision, which is the quarter that runs from on the coastal service. So we revisited on how much of those costs are allocated to our rail operations. So that's one component of it. The second component is related to our what we call non-cash book adjustments. There is a difference between how, for the purpose of accounting transactions in our books, we have to follow what are called generally accepted accounting principles, which is known as GAAP. Under those principles, costs and expenses have to be recognized when you incur them, regardless of whether or not you pay them. the same thing as revenue. Those are recognized in our books when you earn them, regardless of whether or not you receive payment from your customers. So the financial activity that you see on the what we call traditionally the profit and loss statement does not always reflect what's cash going out the door. The biggest one that had an impact for us was the one related to our pension liability. When we look at a perspective of how we account the cost for pension in our books, there's several components that are part of that book pension expense. There is an interest cost component. There is a projected earnings component. There is also what's called a service cost component, and other ones that tend to be a little smaller, but those are the ones that typically are the largest component of the pension expense. So that's an entry that you make in your books to ensure that the liability or what's called your future obligation for your pension matches what's in the CalPERS valuation report. Then that pension cost that you record in your books is not necessarily the payment that you're going to be making for your pension plan. Because again, without going too many details, a lot of those assumptions are amortized over a period of time, and that's based on CalPERS policy. What amortized means is that differences between your actual results on your investments versus what you assume you're going to be returning investments, those are smoothed out over a period of time, and that affects what we call your book pension cost. But then you have the other component, which is the actual cash payment that you have to make to the pension plan in order to fund your unfunded liability. We have what we're asking, what we're requesting is that the non-cash impact on our financial statements to be excluded for the purpose of calculating our eligibility. However, the component where we actually pay the cash to the pension, we are not excluding that. So at some point in time, those are going to be.
Jump in here. Jewel, Mayor Edson, does that answer your questions?
Yes, because I believe that I believe that the recommendation, I would recommend that we just move forward with this based on the answers that we're getting from NCTD and ITOC's report.
Okay, well, and Yoon, thank you very much for the explanation, Yoon, and you're very detailed, and I appreciate that. But I think, yeah, it's so there's a motion. Is there a second for move forward with the staff recommendation on 4B? Is there a second? I see Mr. Sankey's hand is up.
Yeah, it's a second from Mr. Sankey.
Okay, do we have any other discussion? I'm looking for other hands. Uh-oh, wait a minute. My hand thing isn't working. Oh, there we are. Okay. This thing. Okay, I see no other hands on this item. Appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the ITOC committee and all the hard work and effort that you went through. I printed out the study that Davis Farr did, and it was humongous. So appreciate all the effort. And then for all the cities, and we've got many entities. All the cities were audited. All the transportation committees were audited, and transit committees were audited, and it came out. Everybody's pretty much following the rules, and I appreciate the oversight by the ITOC committee. So there's no other comments or questions. If we could do a roll call vote on item 4B.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to state for the record that there are no public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you.
And I will begin the roll call vote for item 4B. San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Schiavone is a yes.
Councilmember Monica Montgomery, City of San Diego.
Yes.
Chair Jim Desmond, County of San Diego.
Yes.
Vice Chair, I'm sorry, Councilmember Bill Baber, East County.
East County, yes.
Metropolitan Transit System is absent. North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Edson, yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
Mayor, you're self-muted.
McNamara, yes, and for the record, I'm not touching the mute button, okay? I'm leaving it up to control to you guys.
No problem, Mayor. It may just be the device that you're using that's doing that. We'll just let you know when you are self-muted so you can unmute and speak.
Thank you.
North County Transit District Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, yes.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Bonelli.
Commissioner, you are self-muted as well.
Bonelli, yes.
And South County Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. Item 4B passes unanimously.
All right, thank you everyone for that. We're going to move on to item number 5. This is the state and federal discretionary programs. These are the proposed SANDAG submittals for these grants. And we got Ariana Zerneden and Dawn Batiste going to be giving a presentation. So Ariana, can you lead us through?
Absolutely. Good morning, Chair Desmond and Transportation Committee members. My name is Ariana Zerneden, and I'm a Senior Financial Programming and Project Control Analyst in the Finance Department, and I'm going to be providing today's presentation for you. Today, we're joined by Dawn Batiste, Financial Programming Manager, as well as a few project managers that are all here to help answer questions, including Alan Kossop and Mario Orso from Caltrans, as well as Carrie Robinson and Linda Culp from SANDAG. The purpose of our presentation today is twofold. Number one, to provide an understanding of upcoming federal and state funding programs and their respective call for projects criteria. And number two, to seek your approval of the proposed projects that would be submitted for future funding. Next slide, please. So attachment 1 to your report provides an overview of these federal and state programs. Since January, you've approved project submittals for 3 state and federal grant programs, including the state's Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, the statewide Active Transportation Program, and the Federal Infrastructure for Rebuilding America, or INFRA, grant programs. And today we're focusing on 1 federal program, which is the Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development, or BUILD, and 3 state programs, including the Local Partnership Program, Solutions for Congested Corridors, and the Trade Corridors Enhancement Program. Next slide, please. We also wanted to take some time to provide a friendly reminder of the process that we use to come up with proposed project submittals based on competitive program criteria and the board's priorities. We know the Federal Department of Transportation and the California Transportation Commission are focused on shovel-ready projects that have been environmentally cleared and are ready to move to the next phases of work in the project development process. So those are going to be your most competitive projects. And we know that the board's priorities are what it has identified in its RTIP and in its budget. So when we look to apply the competitive program criteria to the board's priorities, we ask ourselves, what are the projects that are ready to go to construction? Have we completed design? Have we completed environmental? And when can we go to construction? Or rather, can we go to construction if we get funding? And then some of these programs require a match. So we want to know what is our need versus what funding is available under each competitive program, and think about what is reasonable to ask for. And then is that funding actually going to enable us to get to construction? Because ultimately that is the objective of these programs. And then there's also program specific criteria that we have to watch out for to be able to match project to program. So I'm going to go ahead and cover that next. And as we describe each program and the projects being proposed under each, I'd just like to remind everyone that last summer, as part of the board's discussions about the regional plan and the 5 big moves, the board prioritized work on complete corridors. And then the board approved its budget amendment in September to begin the environmental phases of work for these complete corridors to advance delivery of more than 30 projects. And work is progressing on these board-directed priorities, the goal being to get as many projects as possible ready for future funding opportunities. So given the grant program funding criteria for this cycle, we do need to focus on projects that are strong candidates for this current round of competitive funding, which are those that have been in development for several years, have completed environmental, and are ready to go to construction. And so that's what is being presented to you today. Next slide, please. So attachments 1 and 2 to your report include both a matrix with competitive program specific info, as well as proposed project lists, including potential match and potential source of match, in addition to the potential grant amount request. So I'm not going to go through every aspect of each program here, but rather highlight the main points. The first program is the Federal Build Program, and this one provides $1 billion in federal funding over 2 fiscal years, and it supports projects that will have a significant local or regional impact. We've noted the eligible applicants, types of projects, phases, as well as the match and funding request requirements. For Build, we are proposing to submit 2 projects based on their critical importance to the region. First, the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry Intelligent Transportation Systems Project, for the maximum amount allowable of $25 million, which includes deployment of traffic guidance and tolling equipment on the US side of the border in support of the new Otay Mesa East mega project that will reduce border crossing wait times, traffic congestion, and vehicular emissions while supporting cross-border travel for trucks and people. And then we also have the Del Mar Bluffs Phase 5 project, also for a $25 million ask, and this project constructs critical safety improvements, including piling, retaining walls, seismic, and drainage improvements. Next slide, please. So the next program is the LPP, or Local Partnership Program. This one was created to support local communities that have voter-approved transportation tax measures or fees that are dedicated solely to transportation. The competitive portion of the program provides almost $200 million for a 3-year programming cycle. And for the competitive portion of funds, these can only be used for construction. In terms of eligible projects, these can be construction-ready road, transit, bike projects that can show air quality improvements and that have community support. There is a 1-to-1 match requirement for this one. So for this program, we are proposing the operational improvements for the North Coast Corridor State Route 56 roadway and bike connectors project for $12 million. And this project constructs auxiliary lanes, a new pedestrian crossing and trail connecting to a rail station. And then the Uptown Bikeways Phase 3 Washington Street and Mission Valley project, which is part of your board-approved regional bikeway early action program for $5 to $7 million. And this project is currently in the final design phase and ready to go to construction. Next slide, please. So the next program is the Solutions for Congested Corridors program. This one includes approximately $500 million for the 2-year cycle, and it supports projects that achieve a balanced set of transportation and community access improvements while also looking to provide environmental benefits. Both SANDAG, as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, and Caltrans are eligible applicants, and under this program, only construction phase funding is eligible, and projects proposed for funding have to be in an existing comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. And while there is no match requirement under this programming, leveraging of local, state, and federal discretionary funding is desirable and is considered in the evaluation of projects. For this program, one project is proposed for submittal, and that's the I-5 Bataquitos Lagoon double track for $90 million, which would construct 0.6 miles of second main track along the Lausanne Rail Corridor to eliminate a single track bottleneck, as well as replace an aging single track lagoon bridge in Carlsbad for the benefit of freight and passenger rail services. Next slide, please. So for the last program, this is the TCEP, or Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, which provides $1.3 billion over 3 years. It supports projects that are imperative to the state's trade and freight economy, and it funds infrastructure improvements on federally designated trade corridors of national significance. Projects proposed have to be part of the California Freight Mobility Plan, and all phases of work are eligible in this program, but projects proposing design through construction must have environmental clearance within 6 months of program adoption. In addition to being an eligible applicant, SANDAG as the MPO has a role and is responsible for submitting regional nominations from respective agencies in San Diego and Imperial counties. For this program, the CTC has established 6 main trade corridors that are eligible for funding that prioritize interregional freight projects in recognition of goods movement planning work that's already being done in the region. And so with that, the CTC, or the California Transportation Commission, has set up funding targets for each corridor. The total funds are distributed with a target of 40% going toward Caltrans projects and 60% for projects nominated by regional agencies. San Diego's target out of the regional portion is 11%, or about 90 million. This is considered a target. It's not a minimum, maximum, or a guarantee, and it does not constrain the amount that an agency may request or what the commission may approve. That said, the regional portion does require a 30% match. So for this program, Sandag proposes to submit its applications in partnership with Caltrans, including an Otay Mesa East grant request for $195 million for the construction of a port of entry facility and the associated commercial vehicle enforcement facility. And this would complete the remaining portions of the larger Otay Mesa East mega project mentioned earlier. And then in addition, we are proposing the Del Mar Bluffs phases 5 and 6 for a combined total of 55 to 60 million. That would be to construct critical safety improvements along the Los San Rail corridor in the city of Del Mar. Phase 5 includes piling, retaining walls, seismic, and drainage improvements. And phase 6 would complete preliminary engineering and environmental documentation for bluff protection and stabilization. Next slide, please. So together, these would be the projects proposed for submittal under each program. Next slide, please. And in terms of next steps, pending your approval today, grant proposals would be submitted for consideration by the CTC and the US DOT by the deadlines for each program. And should Sandag be awarded funding, then staff would return to seek your approval to incorporate the funding awarded into the Sandag program budget. Next slide, please. The recommendation is that the Transportation Committee is asked to approve the proposed slate of Sandag projects for submittal to the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Fiscal Year 2020 Build Grant Program and State Senate Bill 1 Trade Corridor Enhancement Solutions for Congested Corridors and Local Partnership Programs. And that concludes the presentation, and we're all here to help answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Ariana, for the presentation. I see there's a hand up from Mr. Benelli.
Yes, Chairman, I appreciate the presentation and the details, and I realize these are a lot of programs, and we're trying to make Sandag as competitive as possible. So I'm just guessing, hopefully Sandag staff has stepped back and looked at the array of programs based on the criteria you guys have outlined. Is there any need for us as a committee to cast a wider net to include more programs, or again, to keep us more competitive, to maybe cut down the amount of programs and be more laser focused on fewer programs? And have you taken that into consideration?
So in terms of applying for future programs, is that the question?
Yes.
Or less projects? Okay. Applying for less. Well, I think you said it when you said cast a wide net, right? I mean, we want to take advantage of as many opportunities as possible. And so these state programs come around only every couple of years. So to the extent that we can, look to funding from outside the region, I think that the agency would, and the region, would want to do that.
And Ariana, you think that puts us in the most competitive position?
Well, we have to be also mindful of the fact that we can't, submit a whole bunch of projects under each program either, right? Because, we have to look at the constraints under each and the criteria under each program as well. But I think there's a balance to it for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I see Mr. Sankey has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Adriana, thank you. Great presentation. This sort of builds a little bit on Commissioner Benelli's comment. One of the most concerning parts of watching the Otay 2 project move forward is all the movement on our side and very little movement south of the border. When we get these risk presentations that are given at the board level, when I think of risk, I think of us spending, an awful lot of money on our side and not enough happening on the other side. Is there an assessment when you add money for the Otay project to these requests that we're factoring in that risk, and whether, for example, the Del Mar Bluffs should receive more attention since we know how significant that particular project is, and we sort of control all of that. On the Otay 2 project, we don't have control of basically 50% of it. So how did you guys factor that in and end up with that continuing in the submissions?
So I think for your question on the Otay Mesa, I think that Mario Orso is on the line, and I would ask that he answer that one for you.
And I think that's great. I'd love to hear from Mario.
Hi, how are you, Mr. Sankey? That's a great question. And what we're taking into consideration in our application is based on what our studies have shown of what we can finance. But definitely as we move forward and during the timetables on a risk analysis, definitely Mexico and what's going on with them and their movement needs to be taken into consideration. Now, the applications are set up for each program that's competitive, and therefore, I don't think we're taking away anything from the Del Mar Bluffs on the Otay Mesa application. It's just merits of what we could achieve with the project once it's implemented. But your point is well taken, and it's probably one thing that we just discussed this week with Hassan, of how we're managing the risk with Mexico and managing that parallel movement with the project, with the Mexicans, as well as the federal partners.
Mario, thank you. That's very helpful. I don't want my question to seem like I'm not supportive of that, because when it comes to the binational relationship, I believe in it tremendously, and I know that when the economy does come back, that's going to be a real important part of our regional recovery. I appreciate your explanation, and as we move forward, I guess we all, as a transportation committee, a board, and need to stay mindful of that part of the project. Anyway, thank you very much for your answer, Mario, and I'll be supportive of the recommendation.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, let's make that a motion.
All right, so we have a motion for the staff recommendation. Is there, I don't know, I'll ask if there's any seconds or if there's a hand in the. I don't see any hands for a second.
I'll second.
Oh, there we go.
McNamara will second.
Okay, I see your hand. All right, there's a second by McNamara. I just kind of wanted to reiterate some of the comments that are made. You know, when we get a project list like this, it'd be nice to kind of know, you know, who were the contenders, you know, miscongeniality or whatever. If there's other, you know, we just get the ones that are recommended here, pick these, yes or no. It would be nice to have, you know, maybe the list of 10 or something like that of the items that were proposed. And we get in staff, and I know you do a grid analysis on, okay, where do we think we can get most competitive? Where can we get the best bang for the buck? And you know, that'd be nice. But I do notice of this list, it's Otay Mesa and the coast. There's none of these projects are Northeast County or North County. And I know you can't always spread the peanut butter around, but it would be nice. And I realize they have to go through design and environmental, but there's nothing, you know, that they have to be ready, shovel ready. And we hear that term, but I see nothing here from, you know, inland or east or North County. So I would like to ask that we advance projects throughout the county as much as we can, so that we can be competitive for these dollars and we get the design and environmental done as best we can on projects county-wide, because this is very, very specific to the coast and Otay Mesa, which they're worthy projects, but this is a big county. Okay, so with that, I guess I'll ask for the roll call vote.
First, Chair Desmond, I'd like to announce that there are no public comments on this item.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I keep forgetting that. I appreciate it.
No problem, Chair. Okay, a roll call vote for item 5. San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Joanna Schiavone is a yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Yes.
County of San Diego, Chair Jim Desmond.
Yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
East County, yes.
Metropolitan Transit District is absent. North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Edson, yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
North County Transit District, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, aye.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
And South County Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call vote. Item 5 passes unanimously.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That concludes our agenda items here for this meeting. Right now, we still have a meeting that's currently scheduled for May 1st. However, you know, it's COVID. Yes.
It's the clerk again. I'm sorry. I'd like to announce for the record that there are no continued public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I seem to be one item ahead of you all the time here. I apologize. I'll get better at this next time. But with that, our committee, we do have a May 1st scheduled meeting. However, I spoke with our staff members, and we don't really have any pressing business, even though I did not want to be canceling meetings this year, but the pandemic has changed that, which is going to change a lot of things. So what I'm going to do is suggest we cancel our May 1st meetings and potentially keep the Friday, May 15th meeting on our calendar for right now. We may have to cancel that one, but for right now, I'm going to cancel the May 1st and just so take May Day off and then keep May 15th on the schedule. So that's all we have today. Any other?
Chair Desmond, this is Commissioner Benelli. I just want to confirm that next week, next Friday, the Sandag Board of Directors meeting is canceled.
This is the first I'm hearing of that.
Yes,
is that true?
I'm sorry. We will be posting a cancellation notice and sending that out today, but Chair Voss has canceled the the April 24th Board of Directors meeting.
Okay, well, that's news. Thank you, Mr. Benelli. Appreciate it. All right. Everybody hunker down. We appreciate everybody's doing it here in the pandemic, and thanks for being here for today's meeting. And this meeting's adjourned.